Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, we're going to be covering Virgie Tovar's first episode of her podcast about GLP-1s. I did a little bit of an introduction for yesterday's video. You can check that out after this one. I had to separate it because there's copyrighted music. And I couldn't remove the music because I needed you to hear the emotional impact she's attempting to have. And the music is obviously a part of that. So I just decided to split it up. Today we're going to be getting into it though. I have no idea what to expect whatsoever. So let's go.
Episode, let's zoom out for a moment. Because to understand the present day obsession with GLP-1s, you have to understand what they really are and what they aren't. GLP-1s are a class of medications originally developed for people with type 2 diabetes. They regulate blood sugar and slow digestion, but a few years ago, researchers noticed something unexpected. Patients on these medications began losing weight, and quickly. It didn't take long before pharmaceutical companies saw the opportunity. Rebrand the drug, hype the weight loss, sell a new story. This time, the story wasn't about diabetes. It was about control, perfection, thinness. Within months, GLP-1s were repackaged as miracle pills.
Okay, so you have to realize when she says those things, that's what she views weight loss as. She views weight loss as perfection, control. I forgot what the other one was, but she's using that interchangeably with weight loss, basically. So she views weight loss as perfection, weight loss as control, and these types of things, which I don't think so, Virgie.
And it worked. Celebrities started posing their quote-unquote Ozempic bodies. Influencers dropped pounds in front of their audiences. GLP-1s were everywhere.
Ozempic is the diabetes turned weight loss drug that's been dubbed the Hollywood injection.
GLP-1 agonists. They are really the hottest drugs in the country right now.
Welcome to another Fueled Health and Wellness segment with Molly. She's here to help explain Smoothie King's new GLP-1 support menu.
People with type 2 diabetes are excited about the potential of once-weekly Ozempic. And you may lose weight. In the same one-year study, adults lost on average up to 12 pounds.
Up to 12 pounds.
But here's the twist. Study after study has shown that weight loss, particularly rapid weight loss, often leads to weight regain in the long run. And that pattern, known as weight cycling, has been linked to increased cardiovascular stress and metabolic dysfunction. And yet, that science, it doesn't make headlines. It doesn't lead to compelling before and after pictures. It doesn't get pharma backing, and it doesn't sell. We've been told GLP-1s are safe, effective, and game-changing. But let me ask you something. Why have lawsuits against GLP-1 manufacturers gone up from 60 to nearly 2,000, a 33x rise in the last 16 months? Why have there been 25,000 new hospital visits due to GLP-1 adverse effects? Why are 1 in 3 people with psychiatric disorders ending up in the hospital within 60 days of being prescribed GLP-1s? Why do 71% of people on GLP-1s go off of them within 1 year and 80% by year 2? What if the people for whom this is a miracle drug may actually be in the minority? And how many more hospital visits or lawsuits will it take for GLP-1 manufacturers or the culture to take the risks of these medications seriously?
So I think that we're just going to trust what she says about the statistics because I'm not going to sit here and debunk every single thing. So she has these things. We're going to assume it's true. If it's not true, you guys can let me know. But for the sake of argument and for the sake of the video, we're going to be like, okay. I think that it has a lot to do with, there is a toxic ritualistic drive, aka E followed by the letter D, within GLP-1 usage, which basically people that have these GIS orders, I have to spell it out a lot, people that have this problem, they don't care about their health. So they're going to use GLP-1s in a way that is very negative. And I think most of the people that are going to be fascinated with GLP-1 usage are probably going to have the toxic ritualistic issues going on. So I have said many times, like, we need to develop some kind of psychiatric or psychological tools to determine if a person has this issue. If they do, I don't think they should be prescribed a GLP-1. I think that it's something that somebody would have to not have this issue to be trusted with. It's not good at all. I've said that from the beginning, and oh my gosh, when I first said that, people got so mad at me, and they're like, but I use this to control my BING, and I'm like, I don't think so. Like, just because you're not currently eating doesn't mean that it's controlled. It just means that you're in a reductive cycle. That's what it means. If you're not actually working on being overly reductive, body hatred, and BING all at once, then you're not actually getting out of the problem. But people always only focus on the eating part. That's because it's framed within an addiction framework, which I do not like, because food is not an addiction. Why? Because there's no such thing as too little cigarettes or too little alcohol or too little caffeine, for example. If you even want to be more tame and talk about caffeine, there is such a thing as too little food. So it's not an addiction. There's, a happy medium, okay? Our physical need for food is not an addiction. It's a need. So I think it just doesn't help the issue at all. It creates a lot of guilt around basic biological functions. When we're talking about BINGE and Ozempic usage, where can it be useful? It can be useful if somebody has comorbidities, if somebody is dealing with diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS, those types of things, especially things that have to do with insulin. If somebody is dealing with being super morbidly obese, the hunger involved in super morbid obesity is very powerful, and Ozempic could help to bring down the physical hunger a bit, because it's very, very strong, and you do have to, it could make it more possible for somebody in that size range, or easier, I think. But you have to be very mindful and monitor your mental health as you're going through that, because it can be a lot. And I would still really suggest being out of the toxic ritualistic for a good while before taking Ozempic or GLP-1s, because you can force things and it can be kind of crazy psychologically, which a lot of people do have very harsh psychological side effects from taking Ozempic or GLP-1 doses that have to do with weight loss. And I think it has to do, once again, with the toxic ritualistic and a complete sudden cessation of the BINGE behavior and rapid weight loss, which can be very stressful on somebody's psyche or brain, as a lot of hormones are released. There's a huge lack of stimulation. For example, people really train their brains to be hyperstimulated by BINGE. And so when that's gone, it can be very tough. Your brain has to rewire, and it can take years depending on how severe it is. And most people that are taking it, they're pretty severe. So that's a very long list of things of why I think that there are a lot of issues with this drug. I think people that use it as directed, I think people that use it without the toxic ritualistic, they're going to have a much better outcome by and large. People that do have it, that do have the toxic ritualistic going on, they're going to misuse it. They will lie about how they're misusing it. They will manipulate it. They will lie about how they're manipulating it. Like, they're not to be trusted. I'm going to be honest. They're not. My advice, if you are in a position where you have BINGE issues and you need to take Ozempic for diabetes, do not see it as a part of a weight loss journey. You need to divorce it from that in your mind psychologically, because it will help you to just use it as directed. And that's really what you need to do. So I have a huge amount of skepticism of people with E followed by the letter D using it. That's not even to say the overly reductive side, which there are very obvious issues with that, which we don't even really need to talk about because it's so obvious. But regardless, you need to make sure that you're fully sane before you take this drug. That's what I'm going to say. Because if you don't care about your bodily health because you're caught in toxic ritualistic cycles, which by definition means you don't care about your health, you will not use this correctly and you will have bad health outcomes. But that isn't necessarily the responsibility of the drug if you're not using it as directed. What does that look like? Oh, I'm going to use it and then have an extremely reductive diet. Oh, I'm going to use it and not get any nutrients. Oh, I'm going to use it and not take care of it at all. Oh, I'm going to double up some weeks, do less the other weeks because I feel like it. Oh, I'm going to go up and down in dosage or whenever I feel like having a moment. Oh, I'm not going to exercise at all while I take it. Oh, I'm going to take way too high of a dose for what I need. And I understand, doctors and stuff, they assume the person they're prescribing the drug to is sane. They assume that if a person has too harsh of side effects, they will stop. But somebody within the toxic ritualistic, they won't necessarily stop. Or they'll assume that somebody will say, oh, I actually need a lower dose. Because a sane person would do that if they were not feeling okay. But people that have these issues, they're not fully sane. So they'll be like, oh, that's just how it's supposed to be. Oh, okay, whatever, I'll just do it. Oh, I won't tell anybody I'm having these issues. Or they'll be like, this is my only salvation. This is the only hope I have. So I have to just force this to work for me, even if it's not working for me. There's a lot of ways that this can end up being abused. So I will say it till the cows come home. We need a better diagnostic criteria. We need people to be screened before they take this drug. Period. Okay, let's continue. Which, by the way, Virgie, you're fully in it, so I would never suggest you take it.
That whole GLP-1 narrative of a miracle drug that leads to effortless transformation is built on some very old ideas. That a thinner body is better than a fat body. That a thinner body is possible for everyone. That it's always healthy.
Better in terms of health, yes. Having a normalized weight is better for your physical health. Possible, yes. Shut up, Virgie. Yes, it is. That's where we're getting into her delulu. So, it's toxic ritualistic BS, which, again, people who also act like they cannot downsize without GLP-1s are also delusional. That is also a delusion. You can. It may be really hard or it might be harder, but you can. You don't need it. So, because a lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to take it. Oh my gosh, I don't want to take this. So, you don't have to. Even if you have diabetes, there are other options if you don't want to take it. I don't understand people enforcing taking it. I don't understand people shaming or hating people for taking it. I think it's stupid either way. I've already told you guys in many videos, this drug would not have been an option for me. It would not have been a psychologically safe thing for me to do. Because the weight loss, the hormones, everything, I was so deeply in the toxic ritualistic that being out of it for years, when I got to around 3 years, I was really struggling psychologically. when I was getting towards 3 years since a BINGE, it was a struggle, and I had an identity crisis on top of it. It was very hard. That was in 2023. I don't know if I would be here if I was taking Ozempic, if I wouldn't have had more control over the pace. It was very tough psychologically, and it was very physical too. So the physical was greatly affecting my psychological health, and I would not have done okay taking Ozempic. I just know I wouldn't have. So it's not an option for everybody. It's just not. I read an article where somebody, I think if you're very, very deep in the toxic ritualistic for many, many years, it might not be an option for you, because you have to learn to live without it, and your brain has to adjust to a life without it. And she was saying she had absolutely no energy at all. She was basically catatonic. She could not, take care of her child on the drug. So, we need to believe people that say things like that too. But what you say to that after is, but there are other ways to lose. You don't need it. Just they don't want to hear. That's not what Virgie wants to hear.
For everyone to pursue a thinner body, that a thinner body is a healthier body for everyone. None of these beliefs are based in science. And you know who clapped back on those?
That's not true. It is much healthier to be of a normalized weight than to be super morbidly obese. So I don't even need to. It is ridiculous to say that.
Old ideas, the body positivity movement. In the ancient Chinese text, The Art of War, military general and philosopher Sun Tzu warns of a strategy more insidious than direct confrontation, one where the enemy's spirit is broken, not with swords, but with silence. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter, he implies through his philosophy of dismantling visible leadership. Remove the figureheads, the unifiers, the voices that rally the troops, and the army becomes disoriented. Morale plummets, order dissolves. Victory, then, becomes a quiet inevitability, not through might, but through psychological attrition. Sun Tzu laid out a chilling tactic. Don't confront the enemy's army. Instead, break their spirit. Take out the leaders. Let confusion do the rest. And in this scenario, that battlefield is social media. Body positive content creators play a pivotal role as visible sources of inspiration and leaders.
I hate to break it to you, Virgie, but it was really likely about money. I think more than anything. I don't think it was this strategic dismantling of body positivity. It was more so that most people within body positivity were lying, and were also doing it for money. And I'm talking very, very big figureheads. As far as the more common people within fat acceptance or within those movements, it was, I think that's the army that she's referring to. Maybe they did get confused when people started to take the drugs. But I don't think it was, I think it was more so the companies just didn't care what happened. And I think that they were thinking, we can help. Oh, we can make money. Oh, this issue can get better. And that was basically it. I don't think it was that deep. I don't think so. I don't. Now, if you're talking about me, then, I am a bit more strategic, but, I'm not exactly the most influential person in the world. Working on it, but I'm not there. So yeah, I don't know.
Creating spaces online.
I think she's giving too much credit to corporations, and she's conflating corporations with activists. She's acting like corporations are activists. They're not. It's wrong.
That are safe havens from the pro-weight loss, pro-diet, fat-shaming messaging that exists everywhere else in the culture. Their followers were and are people recovering.
Everywhere else? Where? I will always say it. Go out in public, say that obesity isn't genetic. You'll have people push back on you. That shows that it's not true what she's saying. There is a lot of fat acceptance normalized, at least in America, and I think in large part Western culture in general at this point. So she's full of it, basically.
From body image disturbances, eating disorders, low self-esteem, and
they never recovered from eating, followed by the letter D. That's not recovery. Part of recovery is weight normalization. So they didn't recover. Okay. Let's not cheapen what recovery is.
Anti-fat bias. They look up to these creators for inspiration, relief, mental health support, and sometimes even recovery. In short,
they look up to them for toxic ritualistic reinforcement. So they want to be told that their toxic coping mechanism is okay and that they're going to live a long, healthy life, binging constantly. That's what they want to hear. That's what it is. Or staying a certain size that they shouldn't stay, which is still toxic ritualistic reinforcement. Think about it on the other end. If you had people advocating to be drastically, I don't know how to say it, but because YouTube is very sensitive about it, you know, under the goal, I'll put it to you that way, to the point where they look physically sick and people were influencing and saying this is great to be this way, would that not be toxic ritualistic reinforcement? No, it would. It's the same when people are very, very big. It's the same thing in an attempt to normalize it as well. It's toxic ritualistic reinforcement.
Many of these content creators and their audiences are members of vulnerable populations.
Yes, which makes it even sicker what you're doing, because you're encouraging people in vulnerable populations to be less healthy, to die earlier. It's very cruel. Very, very, very cruel, even if it's not necessarily intentional. But you know the saying, hurt people hurt people. People within this issue, they're often very hurt, and they're hurting others. And those others hurt them back. Because then if you do have a following and you try to leave the toxic ritualistic, you will face reinforcement. And they will freak out on you and you will be excommunicated, and they try to traumatize you on the way out because they get really pissed about it.
After I got that very first email, my suspicions materialized. A story broke in the Washington Post. Several, possibly hundreds, of content creators in the body positive, fat positive, and anti-diet space had been approached with similar offers. That alarm I had felt back in January suddenly made sense. This was a trap. It was coordinated, calculated, and I suspect it was a pharma-funded net cast wide.
It was for money. It's not rocket science, Virgie.
Enough to catch both the seasoned activists with deep ties to this community and the micro-influencers who were dabbling. And they only needed a few bites, just one or two to break the dam. because the press was hungry for a takedown story. And suddenly, body positivity, a grassroots movement designed to save lives, was on trial. While GLP-1s don't get a single
What lives did it save exactly? I've seen a lot of the opposite.
Headline when they lead to 25,000 new hospital visits in a year. A tiny handful of women disagreeing with each other on Instagram is somehow newsworthy. It didn't take long before the press was calling body positivity a failure and asking one insidious question over and over again. Is the body positive movement toxic?
Does she really not have any kind of accountability or any understanding of her own movement? You know, I can look at things as an anti-fat acceptance activist. I can look at things on my side and I can see there are certain trends or certain things that I don't love. I can criticize my own side. I don't always do it publicly because, duh, why would I? But I can at least reflect internally. And if I were to do a full-on article about it or whatever, or a podcast about it, I would be able to bring some things up. Now, for the record, I haven't had as many complaints about anti-FA for the most part. I think it's been fine. I think we're doing pretty good. I think my only complaint today is that our numbers are really small. That's really my only complaint. That's it. But luckily, you know, I hope more people start. But that's really all I've got to complain about. So I'm pretty happy about it at this moment. I think it's doing about as good as it could do. And nobody gave up. And I would have been so pissed if people gave up in January. I literally did a video where I was targeting other people in this space, and I was like, don't you dare give up if TikTok goes down. So I literally had a moment, but nobody did, so I'm happy. So, bing. I'm a happy girly pop. So I don't have much to complain about, but there have been moments where I did. You know, I don't need to get into specifics about it, but because they're pretty small things. It's not like anything drastic. But I can do that is my point. Can she do that? Can she look at the toxicity on her side? Can she look at how people canceled people for losing weight over and over again? Can she look at how people hated on people for trying to get their health in order? Can she look at how people were very obviously jealous or hating thin women, for example? Can she look at that? Can she look at any of those things? Because the numbers are a lot bigger within fat acceptance, or at least they were. And does she not see any toxicity? Really, Virgie.
I'd love to offer a different question. Why did a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry...
If a movement is that strong, it wouldn't have been so fragile that it could completely fall apart within, you said, 1 to 2 bites. 1 to 2 people taking the GLP-1 was enough to destroy it. It's because it's not based in anything good or based in reality. It's really that simple.
Feel the need to target vulnerable populations, people for whom pro-weight loss messaging isn't just inappropriate, it's dangerous. Especially when there's a robust consumer base who actively desire weight loss.
It's dangerous for people who are really big to pursue weight loss. No, what's dangerous is the toxic ritualistic. So, which that's very different from downsizing. Those are 2 very different things. And people who have had it or have done it, you know it's different. If you're constantly cycling, constantly changing diets, constantly doing stuff like that, that's not good. But if you're doing something sustainable and slowly over time, downsizing, that is healthy.
We find a modern echo of Sun Tzu's Art of War in the tactics of GLP-1 drug manufacturers, whose sprawling PR and influence strategies have taken aim at the heart of the body positive and anti-diet movements. These movements, led by a constellation of vocal, passionate influencers advocating for acceptance, nuance, and resistance to diet culture, have found their voices steadily muted, co-opted, or quietly discredited. In addition to barraging the American public with ads in New York subways, on streaming services, and everywhere else it seems,
she is trying to blame GLP-1's ad campaigns for why fat acceptance is flopping. She's not willing to take accountability at all, which I think that's fine. I say go ahead and not take accountability, because then you guys are going to keep doing what you're doing that's already not working. I said in my last video why I think they're failing, and it's basically because there's fracturing. You know, somebody commented and talked about there's political fracturing. You know, a lot of people are different shades of belief now. It's different than it was in 2020. For example, there's a lot of people who watch all different kinds of media. There's a lot of people who don't watch any media at all. There's a lot of people who are in totally different algorithms or on totally different pages, but they agree on certain issues, but they don't. Like, you'll see, you know, kind of like fat acceptance and I want to say like the more libertarian-ish right, both not liking GLP-1s, for example. They don't agree on anything but that. But that's not something that's going to be easy to navigate algorithmically for AI to handle. Like, AI is going to be like, what? I don't know. And algorithms aren't going to know what to do with that kind of alliance, you know? It's very difficult to do that. So I think they relied a lot on algorithms too. They relied on hashtags. They relied on attaching themselves to trending topics, which trending topics don't trend in the same way anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And because they don't have anything to stand on, then they can't just do that. They have to actually work to be an activist. You have to actually do things. You have to actually come up with stuff. You have to do all these things that, I don't know, somebody with a channel named Graphically Alex has done. I didn't depend on that shit. So I actually tried to be creative. I actually tried to think. I tried to do certain things. I think a lot of people in anti-FA, they roll with the punches. You know, we have a higher goal. We have a goal that unites us. We want better health for individuals and society. That is a higher goal. That is very unifying. Even if people disagree about other issues, you can still come together about this in a way that it's never going to quite go away either, because health is important. It's valued, and realistic takes on these issues and struggles with these issues. A lot of people are not satisfied with being supermorbidly obese or with being overweight or obese. People aren't satisfied with it, and they want explanations or help or motivation or these types of things to get out. So again, there's a lot of different lanes. There's a lot more creativity in anti-FA. Full stop. There's more work. There's more dedication. And I'm not even just, I'm not just talking about myself. I think about like Michelle McDaniel, for example. She dresses up in costumes and she does all this stuff. it's creative. It's interesting. I think of Angelica. She will sit down and do deep dives for hours on like Aubrey Gordon's documentary, and she'll write everything out and go super deep with it. That's work. That is real work. And, those are just 2 examples right off the top of my head. You don't really see that in fat acceptance. You just don't. It's just very lazy and low effort. And it's usually just, oh, there's a trending topic. Let's attach fatness to this. That's all it is. I've done my eras, for example. I've organized different aspects of weight loss. I've organized different phases and times within it. I've done my best to put the toxic ritualistic on blast using my years and years and years of growing up in it, observation of my own issue, and now years of activism, seeing other people have it as well. Hours and hours and hours of these correlations and synthesizing it to where I can talk about it on a daily basis almost on this channel and show it how it shows up again and again and again and again, completely discrediting your movement as a pathological issue, which is the case, which I only knew because I never was in fat acceptance, but I mysteriously believed the same things as you guys when I was younger. And I was like, that's weird. But there's this 4-letter word that goes into all this. It's called work, which y'all are not willing to do. There's probably only a couple. I mean, Virgie does some work. She does. And Aubrey Gordon does some work. But if you're thinking about anyone else, who really does work? Not really. But they are entrenched. Aubrey Gordon especially is deeply connected, and we have issues. She's tough. She's a tough cookie. And I have seen, there's a lot of stuff that she will try to do, basically. All I can do is make it really hard for her when it comes to me. That's all I can do. But they'll do anything they can. They want to take down the message. We've seen this with Angelica many times. It's a lot. And she does have some institutional power, but she does a lot of her stuff in the shadows these days. And, there are people that have these issues that work for YouTube, for example. There are people with these issues that work in institution. There's a huge institutional issue. I do think anti-FA, we are so winning the culture, which is amazing, but we have institutional barriers that we need to face, and there has to be some change. We need to have actual help within institutions rather than just telling people with BINGE, don't ever restrict. That's not good advice. That's not the only part of it. It's not a full picture. It's not helpful. For example, people need help. In our institutions, we need to understand that people with these issues go into institutions and they might not even be fully aware that they have the problem. And they're leading the conversation or leading things down a bad path. So we still have a lot of work to do. And I'm telling you guys, a fat lash can always happen. And what is a fat lash? A fat lash is fat acceptance gains traction again. It can happen. They are weak right now, but it can always shift, and I know that. I know that within activism, trends can always shift. In 2 years, they could be raging back if we are not vigilant, honestly, within anti-FA. And that goes for just, normal people as well. Like, don't let these ideas come back. They're not even gone, really. I mean, we're still massively obese in the US. It's still a huge issue. It hasn't gone away. It's just stabilizing, which is still a victory. But, let's keep going, right?
GLP-1 marketers have also employed a subtler, more Sun Tzu-esque approach. Sponsorships that blur the lines between authentic message and corporate interest. Social campaigns that reframe weight loss drugs as empowerment tools. Partnerships that slowly erode the ideological clarity of the movement. Influencers who once decried diet culture are now found promoting health optimization or body autonomy. Those who are still vocal,
The horror,
face increased online harassment, algorithmic suppression, or
algorithmic suppression? No, it's that you don't have anything to attach yourself to anymore. It's too hard. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I do love how she doesn't acknowledge anti-FA at all. That's funny to me. But that's fine.
professional
Just ignore us. There's nothing to see here, Virgie. Nothing at all.
reputational risk. The language shifts, the stakes go up, the morale cracks. And just as in the art of war, the battlefield is not where you'd expect. It's not in labs or boardrooms, but rather in Instagram captions, podcast ads, and subtle rewrites of personal narratives. By neutralizing or converting the leaders, the movement loses cohesion. Its followers, scattered and uncertain, begin to doubt what they once believed.
So she views it just from a complete top down. She can't see it. Like, I see it both ways. So I see it from top down and bottom up. Like, I see general followers of FA waking up to their issues, for example. Or maybe they watch a Megan Ann, for example. And they're like, maybe this isn't right. And then they leave. So that's more like a bottom up view. So like the general layperson, fat acceptance person, somebody that believes in fat acceptance, they see somebody and then maybe they're influenced to leave. And then there is the bigger ones, the leaders that also turn. But not everybody who's turned has gone on Ozempic or a GLP-1. People turn for a lot of different reasons. The biggest one is typically their own health. Typically you hit a wall eventually, and you start to wake up to the reality of what you're doing. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes hearing somebody else talk about the realities of it. It takes understanding that there is hope, there is a way out, which, I've done my best to show my journey publicly, to show that it is possible and that you will get there. Even if it takes years, it will happen. And I think that that's really necessary. And the more that happens, the more it will continue to happen. The more people will see that it's possible. And it will start a chain reaction that will continue to grow, which is so important. But ultimately, it goes both ways, Virgie. Your average layperson is not just a sheep. Your average layperson has a brain too, and they also have left fat acceptance. Because typically it's physical health. Typically. I want to work to make that not be the main reason. I hope that we can catch people before it gets that bad. And I want to fight for that so that we can start preventing these issues rather than just recovering from them. But recovery is still powerful and it's great. But I'm just saying, you know me, I'm always looking towards next steps, you know. But I'm just saying, there's a reason why it's dying. Culture has shifted too. And I'm so proud to be a part of that cultural shift. I'm so proud to be one of the voices that has pushed this cultural shift. And I'm going to continue to.
What used to be a defiant chorus of all bodies are good bodies is now increasingly drowned out by more palatable messages. Health optimization, empowered choice, science-backed solutions. This isn't just about weight loss drugs. This is about attempting to destroy a movement of people who are vulnerable. It's about what happens when an industry doesn't argue with its critics. It absorbs them. It confuses them. It dismantles the leadership until the movement itself forgets what it stood for. A quiet war. No visible bloodshed. But the damage? It's deep. Sun Tzu would recognize the brilliance of it. Subdue the enemy without fighting. Replace resistance with confusion. Make the revolution look like it's fallen victim to infighting, not sabotage.
Make it look like it? Yeah, right.
Another thing that Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War is that war is always about deception. So when it comes to claims that GLP-1s are a revolutionary miracle weight loss drug, I have to point out the obvious, that an appetite suppressant by any other name is still an appetite suppressant.
4 great ways to lose weight with thrifty new Plan, the Dairy Delightful Liquid Dietary. But I like to eat. Still, you'd like to lose weight, and you can do both on the Plan and a meal-a-day diet. Eat 1 full meal every day, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Drink Plan instead of the other meals and before bedtime. Plan is smooth, like a milkshake.
For decades, most weight loss medications worked by ramping people up. Stimulants like speed, caffeine, they suppress appetite by jolting the nervous system and killing the appetite. GLP-1s don't rely on speed or caffeine, but
And the toxic ritualistic increases appetite by periods of avoiding certain nutrients. A lot of people in FA, they avoid like meat, for example. They'll just eat a lot of bread, things like that. They always talk about, I want like a diverse diet. They don't have one. They usually eat the same thing over and over again. Why? Because it keeps your appetite high. Also, avoiding exercise at all costs, it keeps your appetite high. So they do things to increase appetite. And I will talk about that. Also, obsessing over food, that increases your appetite. Having nothing else in your life, that will increase your appetite. Being obsessed with everything involving how you look and everything, that will increase your appetite. Being super morbidly obese in general will increase your appetite. There's a lot of things that the fat acceptance movement advocates for that increase appetite. But heaven forbid anybody has done anything that decreases appetite. Like, for example, exercise. A cup of coffee in the morning. That's so wrong. But it's okay to be completely stagnant and sedentary for decades, apparently.
but they use another synthetic hormone that kills the appetite. Listen closely when I say GLP-1s changed the how, but they did not change the what. The what is food restriction, appetite suppression, caloric deprivation. In short, we have a word for this, and it is dieting. And yes, GLP-1s produce dramatic results because the deprivation is extreme. Some users report being unable to finish even half a meal. Others forget to eat altogether. This isn't moderation. This is metabolic override. In that way, GLP-1s aren't so different from older, more brutal tactics like wiring someone's jaw shut or asking them to swallow cotton balls to feel full. Now, maybe hearing about wiring someone's jaw shut or encouraging them to eat cotton balls isn't shocking to you. Maybe the idea that a medication puts someone at risk of forgetting to eat altogether, maybe these things don't land like a gut punch, even though they should. Why? Because we've been trained not to see them as disturbing, especially if they're happening to people in larger bodies. We've been desensitized through shows like The Biggest Loser, where starvation and humiliation were entertainment, through endless fat jokes in movies and sitcoms, through every magazine cover that screamed before and after like a righteous battle cry. We've been taught one thing. There is no...
And has there been any messages that normalize being huge, Virgie? And how much more of those are there?
Nothing worse than being fat. And when the possibility of thinness...
And how often do you hear that it's perfectly fine to be fat? Probably more.
Of weight loss enters the picture, many of us shut off our sense of right and wrong. We stop...
Honestly, I could say that this exact same thing works the opposite way, where a lot of people have been desensitized to supermorbid obesity. A lot of people think it's normal, and it's not. It really isn't. A lot of people think it's acceptable. It's not. It isn't. Again, I've always said that as an anti-fat acceptance activist. I've always advocated against acceptance. I don't think you should accept it. By definition, I have said that, and people have told me sometimes, well, it's okay if people are big. No, it's not. I've never said that here. It's not okay. No. But I'm about solutions, and I'm about actually getting it done, which shame does not help, which is why I don't do it. If it did, then I would do it. I would shame people, but it doesn't work. It creates anxiety, which isn't necessary. And it's not helpful either. We want solutions. I actually care about it getting fixed. I don't care about feeling better than somebody. I'll put it to you that way. I want you to succeed. I want everybody to succeed. It's not, I've never bought into, since I've started my activism at least, I've never bought into a body hierarchy. I never bought into any of that crap. I think it's about doing the best you can for yourself. It's about autonomy. It's about intrinsic motivation, especially. I've constantly said intrinsic motivation is what will get you there. Don't do it to please other people because you don't know if they'll be pleased. You need to do it for you and for your own health and for people that love you, that care about your health and care about you being around and having a better quality of life. That's what we care about. That's what I care about here. So it's not acceptable. It's not. I think I would go harder in a way on other people if I wasn't sitting here working on myself still, but I am. So a lot of that energy, it goes internally for now. For now. There will be a day where I have more energy. And it's like, we need to support each other to get out of obesity. We need to inspire each other to get out of obesity. We need to normalize getting out of obesity and having it be a bit calmer or lighter than the seriousness, or if everyone will hate you if you're big, everyone hates you, everyone hates you. I need that to change. How about you feel better? You do. You can think clearer. You can find yourself. You can connect easier with other people. You can breathe easier. You can sleep easier. You can fit on a plane. You can walk without your knees killing in most cases. You know, you can work harder. You're more able to pursue your goals. There's a lot of benefits to it that have nothing to do with other people. But socially it can help, because when you finally downsize, you have to develop your own personality outside of the fat label, which is good for you. You have to develop an identity outside of the toxic ritualistic, which is good for you. You have to find ways of connecting with others that don't have to do with body hatred, which is good for you and healthy.
Asking crucial questions like, what does this cost? Who does this hurt? Is this ethical, or is it inhumane? GLP-1 manufacturers know this. The diet industry knows this. They've discovered something I call the moral loophole. It's a cultural blind spot, a place where otherwise good people stop seeing clearly. And that blind spot, it's turned into a blank check. A check that's been cashed again and again by the weight loss industry at the expense of regular people who are just trying to do the right thing. But I want to stop here for a moment and remind us that no one, not even pharmaceutical companies or doctors, gets a blank check. And I want us to slow down and give these cruel weight loss methods the gravity they actually deserve. Because what we're talking about isn't health. Is
there a non-cruel way, according to you, Virgie? Because I would say probably not. Is there any way that it works for you? Is there any way that it's possible? She would probably say no. She's probably the type of person, if you feel even the tiniest ounce of anxiety, it's toxic that you're doing it. That's not true. Sometimes good things in life are difficult. Sometimes the hard thing is the right thing. Sometimes it's hard either way. You have to pick your poison. Sometimes you have to choose your suffering. Sometimes you have to choose what difficulty you're going to deal with. The difficulty of staying that big or the difficulty of getting out. I made my choice. I advocate for this choice. I'm going to continue to advocate for this choice. Period.
survival mode. When a human being is severely deprived of food, whether they feel hungry or not, everything in their body begins to change. Cognition narrows, brain function shifts, vision can
Same thing within supermorbid obesity, which she will never acknowledge.
blur, the senses can...
Oh yeah, I had night blindness terribly because I had very bad insulin resistance in 2021. I literally could not drive at night. At 29 years old. But then it started to get better because I was taking care of myself. All the things that she's saying happen within supermorbid obesity as well.
dull, long-term decision-making gets worse. This isn't just theory. It's been studied, documented,
Same thing within supermorbid obesity.
repeated. When people are put into that state, even voluntarily, they are more vulnerable, more suggestible, and
It's true of supermorbid obesity as well. I'm going to keep saying it. I
easier
want you guys to understand all these things. It's just as true.
to sell to. GLP-1s don't just shrink appetites, they shrink awareness of what's happening, of what's being lost.
But being huge doesn't do that, Virgie. Tying your shoes being a huge event in your day doesn't affect your ability to be aware of what's going on with you. Having to fight to sleep each night doesn't affect your awareness. Virgie, questioning if you're having a heart attack constantly doesn't do anything to your ability to think or long-term plan, or the knowledge that death may be coming a lot sooner than for most people. That doesn't affect your ability to make long-term plans. It just doesn't work coming from you, Virgie. It just doesn't work.
Of what's being sold to you as health. And that...
But it's okay to sell supermorbid obesity as health. It just doesn't work. Sorry, Virgie.
This is where the story gets dark. My 10 plus years of research have shown me that the promise of weight loss is a lie.
So I'm living a lie or what? Then I need you to disprove me or whatever. I need to know how my experience and the experience of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people, I need you to explain how that's a lie.
And worse, it always has the potential to harm people. I know most Americans don't agree with
Supermorbid obesity always harms people.
me. Most Americans want to lose weight no matter how. So I have to point out the obvious. The GLP-1 revolution would have made billions selling to them, to the majority of Americans. But that wasn't enough. They came after us. People in recovery. People who change history with our stories, with the truth. People like me. People like you. They stole the language we created to heal ourselves and are trying to use it against us. They brought the fight to my doorstep, to our doorstep.
I can understand her personal vindictive feelings towards GLP-1s.
They could have fought clean, but they chose to fight dirty. And I am not sitting this one out. Before I go, I've got one question for the GLP-1 industry. If you have, in fact, created a miracle drug, if this truly is something the world has never seen, if it's true that this isn't just another diet, then why did you need to go after the people trying to bring down the diet industry?
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because I don't want the music. Ultimately, they did it because they felt that the audience would also be good customers. So it's basically, they viewed it from a marketing perspective. If we can get this person that is fat to do it, then their audience, which is primarily fat, will also want to do it. And I think there was also an assumption that most fat people want to lose weight, which I think is kind of true, obviously. So I think that she doesn't acknowledge the internal conflict or internal desire of a lot of people within fat acceptance to actually lose the weight. And I think that that's something that she's not going to ever want to acknowledge. But other than that, let me know what you guys think about this. I will get back to you guys later. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. Peace.